I sold my body and discovered the greatest emotional misery. This confession arrived in my private group days ago. A woman decided to reveal her most intimate story, exposing the raw reality of the market for temporary companionship. This isn't a story of romance or desire. It's a brutal account of loneliness, despair, and the desperate search for connection through money. Her words show the dark side of longing when it's born from the deepest need for affection. I was broke and took the job. On the video call, he seemed normal, but when I opened the hotel door, I was shocked. His skin was a distorted collection of scars and lumps, his body a testament to total neglect. The room smelled like a mixture of cheap deodorant and anxiety. The yellowish light highlighted every imperfection, every mark of a life without self-care. His hands trembled when greeting me, hesitant and sweaty, like those of someone experiencing their first awkward encounter. He begged to be more vulnerable without protection, with a desperation that bordered on madness, as if that small barrier was the only thing separating him from true connection. The air grew heavier with each refusal, while he tried to exchange his dignity for fleeting comfort. The worn carpet of the room silently witnessed that futile attempt at intimacy. The kisses were a tragic comedy, awkward, uncertain, filled with desperation. The bitter taste of old coffee mixed with anxiety in his mouth. His hands roamed my body like a blind man reading Braille for the first time, unsure, unknowing. The mirror reflected an almost surreal scene. Two bodies attempting to simulate closeness under cheap lighting, while the city pulsed indifferently on the other side of the window. With each question about my life, the emptiness in his eyes grew, consuming everything. He wanted to absorb every detail of my past relationships, as if my experiences were the missing piece to his understanding of connection. The air conditioner hummed a monotonous rhythm as he listened to my stories, his eyes growing wide, almost desperately trying to picture a world he could never be a part of. An only child, no friends, a life void of genuine relationships, the perfect product of a society that has commodified human connection. The hotel's cheap sheets witnessed yet another night of loneliness disguised as temporary solace. His high school stories, repeated endlessly, were so faded that even he wasn't sure whether they were real or imagined. The clock on the wall marked each second of that disheartening conversation, a life without true companionship. His embrace felt suffocating, like a drowning man clinging to his last breath. The cheap cologne mixed with the smell of chronic loneliness as he held on, not letting go. During our time together, his sounds felt more like silent cries, not from pleasure, but from a deep, overwhelming neediness. Skinny, short, socially awkward, a perfect product of the disposable relationship era. The bathroom mirror reflected his desperate attempts to fix his hair, frustrated by his inability to feel confident. I've seen less attractive people form meaningful connections, but this one exuded an aura of desperation that filled the room. His voice alternated between false bravado and the tremor of years of rejection. The most disheartening moment was watching him try to imitate unrealistic expectations, like an amateur actor in an empty theater. Each forced gesture, each rehearsed word, felt hollow in the cold fluorescent light. The untouched minibar and silent TV were the only witnesses to that tragic performance. His hands shook as he tried to execute moves he'd clearly only seen on screens, never in reality. I offered advice on self-esteem and relationships, but his insecurities were like a rusted armor, one he refused to remove. The room grew dense with tension as my words about therapy and self-care seemed to fall on deaf ears. His bitten nails nervously tapped the nightstand as I spoke. A crumpled pack of cigarettes and a bulging wallet were his only companions during this manufactured intimacy. The loneliness industry is booming, men paying for increasingly elaborate fantasies of connection. The swipe of the credit card marked the price of dignity. Outside, the city carried on, unaware of the small world within those four walls. But for him, that hotel room was his entire reality. The peeling wallpaper silently observed 1,000 similar stories. This session was a harsh lesson in modern masculinity. Mechanical actions, rehearsed words, faked emotions. The mattress creaked as he desperately sought validation, his body trembling not from excitement, but from fear. Fear of failure, fear of never being enough. I left that room carrying a weight that no shower could wash away, The painful knowledge that I'd been more than just a companion. I'd been his therapist, his emotional support, and his illusion of connection. The elevator ride down felt like an eternity, each floor offering more time for reflection. His cologne had seeped into my clothes, a constant reminder of the disturbing experience. Everyone has a price, but his was paid in pieces of his dignity, every session a small exchange for what remained of his humanity. The hotel corridor echoed with the footsteps of other clients, other lonely souls seeking temporary fulfillment. The receptionist gave me a knowing look, a silent accomplice to another night of manufactured affection. In my pocket, the money felt heavier, tainted by the emotional pain I'd witnessed. Our society is raising a generation of men who, despite their wealth, are incapable of forming authentic connections. They can buy fleeting moments, but they can't buy real love or friendship. The taxi ride back felt like a blur of city lights, each motel sign another reminder of the countless other rooms hosting similar stories of disconnection. The driver adjusted the rearview mirror, catching my tired gaze, just another professional returning home with stories nobody wants to hear. The most painful truth? He'll be back next week, and the next, trapped in a cycle of paid companionship. The city lights blurred in the taxi window, a haunting reminder of how many other men were, at that exact moment, booking their next brief encounter. A silent epidemic of empty souls, feeding an industry that promises to fill voids that no amount of money can ever truly touch.